Thank you very much.
Although Mr. De Niro needs no introduction, I really would like to share some of the highlights of his illustrious career.
How are you? I'm sorry I'm late.
It's okay, you're perfect. We had a wonderful conversation with a young Israeli filmmaker who made a movie called Taxi Driver, but it's about a female taxi driver.
Okay.
Robert De Niro, welcome. I'd like to introduce you just to mention a few highlights of your illustrious career. Mr. De Niro launched his motion picture career in Brian De Palma's The Wedding Party in 1969. In 1974, he won his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for The Godfather Part 2, and in 1980, he won his second Oscar as Best Actor for Raging Bull. Robert De Niro has also been nominated for Academy Awards for his work in Taxi Driver, The Deer Hunter, Awakenings, the remake of Cape Fear, and Silver Linings Playbook. Mr. De Niro was honored with the Golden Globe Cecil B. DeMille Award in 2011. He served as the jury president of the 64th Cannes Film Festival, and in 2020, Robert De Niro received the Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award. He was most recently seen in The Irishman, his 9th collaboration with Martin Scorsese. Robert De Niro takes pride in his production company, Tribeca Production, and the Tribeca Film Festival, which he founded with Jen Rosenthal, also on this call, and Craig Hadcock. And Mr. De Niro, you will also be happy you'll be happy to know that we had 2 of our graduates winning awards at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2018. Atara Frisch won the Special Mention Award for her short, The Love Letter, and Adia Omri-O won the Student Visionary Award for her short, Stitches. Through Tribeca Productions, Robert De Niro has developed projects as producer, director, and actor. Tribeca's A Bronx Tale in 1993 marked Robert De Niro's directorial debut. He also directed The Good Shepherd in 2006. It is our absolute pleasure and honor to welcome you, the great Robert De Niro, to Tel Aviv University. We have many, many people on the call. Many of them know you personally. All your Israeli friends are on this call. I want you to know. And the first question I would like to ask you is a personal question. How are you coping with the COVID-19 crisis? How's it been for you?
It's been, I'm luckier I can be in a place that's safe, pretty safe and all that. So it's been manageable. It's everything else around it that affects me, everyone, all of us, and people, especially who are not as fortunate as I am, who have to deal with it and possibly get it, or family members getting it. It's not a good situation. It's a terrible situation for all of us. And it's as we all know, people will say, well, where are you going to go this summer? Where am I going to go? I'm going to go nowhere because everything is locked down pretty much. It's a terrible situation. It shouldn't have happened the way it did. It could have been minimized a lot more, I'm sure. And I don't like that to keep going in, but I have no, it's just, this is a situation that could have been minimized or possibly even avoided so much more if the administration had heeded the warnings and not dismantled the things that Obama had set in place, and even Bush, the way I understand it. They just didn't even pay attention. And we're all paying for it now and dying for it. So that's affecting me.
You have many, many friends here on the call with us tonight. And I just wanted to ask you if you can share with us, when was your first time in Israel? When was your first experience with our nation?
The first time I went there must have been about, I'd say 30 years ago, maybe more, 35 years ago. I met Moshe Dayan and his wife at the time, Rachel. It wasn't his wife or whoever she was at that time, or his new wife, and Asa Weitzman and others that I'm forgetting, and who else? Well, I have other friends. there, who I've met later years. But I have a few, more than a few, good friends.
Yeah, and they all love you very much. Now, you were born in Manhattan to a very, very artistic family.
Yeah.
Do you remember the early days of your um, realization that you want to be involved in acting and filmmaking? What was it that made you realize that?
I just, I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be an actor when I was 10, and I went on Saturdays for about a year. Then I stopped and I went when I was 16 for a year and a half, not on Saturdays, that was more consistent. And then I stopped again and started up again when I was 18 and did it more seriously until I started leaving to look for work and stuff like that around 20, well, actually 1920. I was in the wedding party when I was 19. So, and then there were stretches of not getting anything, of course, commercial heroes, stuff like that, but not really much. And then slowly, I started with De Palma again, and he was doing a movie called Greetings, and then I think I was 24, 25 then. Then Hi Mom, and but the wedding party that De Palma had directed, I had a supporting role, or a small supporting role, if you will.
Growing up, was there a specific movie or a specific play that you remember that really influenced you?
Uh, no, but the thing, what I remembered from Stella Adler is that her saying that, well, she was referring more to great material plays and stuff like that. But what's behind it? What's the message, if you will? How does it relate to the world? What is this play saying? This piece of work saying? So it always stuck with me about anything that you do, that it could be a kitchen sink drama, something very small, but it has a wider, deeper, more important meaning. So that's something to always be that I thought of when she taught me that, or brought it up in class.
You also attended Lee Strasberg School. Are there any principles that you studied, or you learned from Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg that you'd like to share with our students?
Well, Stella Adler was called the Conservatory of Acting, and they were at odds about with Strasberg and the method, or that whatever you want to call, and other actors. I remember there were some teachers who would come teach at Stella's school who were method actors or method directors, teachers, whatever you want, but they taught at her school. So my feeling was that they were just told not to do certain things. It was more about the objective finding of the character as opposed to making it about yourself or being indulgent in a certain way. That was her argument about it, to be more. And she had a great script analysis class that she'd start with photographs and say, don't fictionalize, just take a real photograph, look at it, pull out what you feel, and that's how you're interpreting those choices are those are your choices, and that you would then do with a script, a play. The only thing is that a lot of the material, as she referred to, was classic, great works of the great playwrights of the last 100, 200 years, or Arthur Miller, or contemporary playwrights then. So it was a different reference, I'd say, than to not that screenplays can be, you have to do apply the same thing. It's just a different approach in my experience with screenplays. They morph, and one person comes on, a new person comes on, it changes, it becomes another kind of thing. The actors such as myself or the other actors come into it and change things, and the director adapts to what they, and helps them and guides them. Scorsese guides you into what is the final product, if you will. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Yeah, it's a beautiful segue to our next question, which comes from one of our students, Oshra. We're all very curious about the process you go through selecting and preparing for a new role. Can you share with us how you select your roles and then how you prepare for them?
Well, I mean, it's in so many different ways. Some like, if I'm hired by someone to do something, and it could be, as a young actor, I'm happy I got this part, so I'll make do and put in what I think it should be. The director might even be hiring me because I'm more the type and fit the type, but my feeling is I fit that, but I also want to do other things. And so I make choices that the director goes along with and respects, and what I think it is, and others, they'll direct me away from that. Other things, say working with Scorsese, we have a project we've worked on for a few years. Like The Irishman, took us many years to get that underway. It was from a book that we liked, and it slowly morphed into well, not morphed, it was taken and made into a script. And then even in that script, we worked on things, worked on scenes, changed them, adjusted them to the actors' strengths or non-strengths, even depending on what was needed for the scene. And then Marty would, like a conductor, orchestrate it, and literally, I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly.
Yeah. Well, one of our students, David, was interested in The Irishman, about how does it feel to play in the same movie an older character and a younger character. What transition does it require on your part?
Well, it's easier to play older than younger, just as far as makeup goes too. Younger, and also physical behavior. And sometimes in The Irishman, I took for granted certain things that I felt good, I could move, but I really was not moving like a younger person that I was supposed to be playing, the younger Frank Sheeran. So we were all so involved with the visual and this process that we were using to make us look younger. But then we also had a guy who was our coach. I forget the title it was, to remind us that we're 39 or we're 45 or 55 or 65, whatever. But to remind us that we're not so hunched over if we're younger, and we're a little more spry and agile when we go down the stairs and stuff like that. And that is sometimes you are reminded when you actually have to go down the stairs. Yeah, you can go down if you're young and you go downstairs as an older person, you have the control. But when you're older, trying to go down like a young person, it's a little harder. So
now, many of the characters that you portrayed over the years, were from both sides of the law. You portrayed many criminals as well as law enforcement. What attracts you to that world?
Well, some of those characters I always find more interesting. I don't know, maybe because of the outlaws thing, and there's more. It's more interesting. They're more interesting kinds of characters, and you can do a little. I feel I can do a little more with them, as opposed to somebody who's always who's a kind of a hero, a traditional hero of another sort. Those are good too if they're done well. And but that was mainly my reason. I said, this is interesting to do and find a way to do it and so on. As I get older, maybe as I start to see there are people in this world who are not good and should not be in places where we all know they are now, and they're relentless and they're unforgiving and should be not forgiven for uh, their badness, if you will. And so that's their characters I wouldn't even want to play, like you know who. So
I'm reminded of a great movie that you made. I think Arnold Milchan was the producer, called The King of Comedy.
yes, that.
What was the attraction there to the character of Rupert Pumpkin?
Well, the script was written by a film critic for Newsweek at the time named Paul Zimmerman, and as I remember it, Marty and I, Scorsese, were in Cannes for. He was there for something, and I was still shooting 1900. No. Yeah, I was still shooting 1900, and we were getting ready to do Taxi Driver, and I think that's when Paul Zimmerman gave us the script, or me the script that he wrote, and I really liked it. I thought it was terrific. And so Marty and I talked about it over the, I don't know, years, but for a while, and then after Raging Bullets started coming up, and I was still wanting to do it, and that was one that I was trying to get Marty to do. And also, it was interesting because Milos Forman had a script that he was working on with Buck Henry, and he wanted to. I don't know how it wound up with him, the King of Comedy, Buck Henry, but that wasn't. So I read his script too, that Milos wanted to do. Somehow at that point, Marty wasn't involved or wasn't sure, so I was talking to Milos, and I said to him, we met in an Indian restaurant on Second Avenue in New York, and I said, Milos, I'd really like to keep the Paul Zimmerman script and do that, if you don't mind. And he said fine. So and then I went and pursued Marty to do it, and that's what I remember at this point. There are other parts of it I'm sure that I forgot, but if they told me, I'd remember.
You're also known for your great comic roles in movies such as Wag the Dog, Analyze This, Meet the Parents, just to name a few. How is it different for you to play comic role as opposed to your dramatic roles?
They're, in some way, they're more. I think of it as being easier, a comic role, because I can do certain things that are kind of, you don't have to really explain because characters a certain way, and if they do that little nutty thing or whatever, it's okay. Not always. Then the director has to rein you in or pull you here or pull you there. They're both, but comedy is, I can only do a certain type of comedy. I can't do certain other comedy that people are so great at that I would love to do, but it's just not what I can do. But the things that I can do, I have fun doing, and they're fun the way dramatic things are fun. Sometimes they're a little easier because you know that it's not, even though you're doing a serious part or a serious scene, but it's ultimately funny. You still have to commit to it being serious in order for it to work, to be funny. If you're letting the audience know that you're trying to be funny, then it's not funny anymore.
Right. Comedy is a very serious business.
Right.
Your collaboration with Martin Scorsese produced 9 films, The Irishman being your latest joint project. How was this unique collaboration born? Can you tell us about that, the history of that professional and personal collaboration?
We, Marty, Marty and I were about to do another movie about an aging hitman and so on, but it was a more traditional genre type movie, and we finally had gotten it all set, and we were looking for something to do, and this finally came about. And it was a go picture, as they say. And then I said, I'm gonna. Marty was showing me old films, like old French films, or I remember seeing a Jean Gabin film. I forget who the director was, and the style and what he was interested in. So we were just starting that, and I said, yeah, I have to read this book that I've always that I've been talking about. It came out a few years earlier, called "I Heard You Paint Houses." So that Eric Roth, in fact, told me about. So I read it. After Marty and I were together, I went off and read it, and said to him, Marty, you have to read this book because it just feels like something that we should try to do. And so then there was a period, and he read it and he agreed, and then so there was a period where we tried to talk with the studio. Brad Gray was the head of the studio at Paramount at that time, and they had given the green light of the other film, and so we were at that stage. We were thinking maybe we can put them both together in some way, but Brad Gray was sort of more, I think, cynical about that and saying, well, so you want to go back to, as Jane Rosenthal reminds us, that you want to go back to a development deal. So basically, that's kind of what we did. We went back to square one with this other, with I Heard You Paint Houses, and then Marty got Steve Zalian, and Steve Zalian, and so Steve wrote us. We had meetings, and Steve wrote a script, and that after a while, a year or two or three, and then we about 5 years before we shot it, we had a reading with me and Joe Pesci and Al Pacino and Bobby Cannavale and Paul Herman and some others, and Marty was there. We had a reading of it just to see. We wanted to see how it was, and we were really nowhere with it who was going to produce it. Even with at that time Paramount, because of the money, who wanted to do it, who was interested. So we said, let's just have a reading of it and document it and show it to people who are, and invited possible people who would want to put money in it, whether they be studio heads or just financiers of one sort or another. And finally, we got it. I remember reading the book 12 years started shooting. So that's how long it took to get it going.
Yeah, so that's a piece of life. Is there any new project you're working with, Mr. Scorsese?
We're working on Killers of the Flower Moon, that Marty's been wanting to do for a while, and he and Leo were working on it, and they brought me into it. And Leonardo DiCaprio, and so I don't know. We're waiting to see when we actually can get practical and start setting it up to shoot, but we will do it.
Wonderful. We can't wait. One of our students, Maya, is interested in your experience as a director. You directed two feature films, and she would like to know what's the difference for you as an actor who's directing as well.
Well, I enjoyed two films I did. It's a different type of commitment, um, but I really liked it. I always thought the most films I'd ever do were maybe five, uh, three, man. So I tried to do a sequel to The Good Shepherd, um, and I had some ideas about how it would be, what the basic outline of the story was, but it was too difficult. We attempted it, Eric Roth, but it just never took off. It's a lot of work and willpower, and just it's like Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill. You know, it's and I kind of let it go because of other things in my life and so on and projects. Um, so I don't know. If something came along, I still might do it. I don't know at this point, though.
Um, the head of our Tisch school, Raz Yosef, has a question for you. Are streaming platforms signal the end of cinema as we know it, or maybe streaming platforms are the savior of the film industry? How do you see the future of your industry?
I don't know. I mean, I'm grateful to Netflix for putting the money and giving us the what we needed to make the movie. It was always intended to be a film shown on the big screen, and there was the attempt to have that, or more than the attempt. They worked out to the best that I suppose they thought they could, and the theater owners to have it play for a few weeks, and then it went to what its normal format was. Um, I think that the streaming is good because you can tell a story tell a story in a much longer and detailed way. Um, but it's not. I don't know where we're going with it, and especially with this COVID-19, I don't know where we're going. What'll be there? There has to be always theaters for movies that play with an audience that. Uh, you want to watch a movie with an audience. I do at times, especially a comedy or any movie that has something that you say, well, you want to see this with an audience, not at home, which is okay too, on a much better screen than I had when I was a kid. Some of these screens are like movie theater screens in houses now. Um, but I can't answer that. I don't know where it's going. I just don't know. I mean, streaming seems to be something that'll be there. Movie theaters, I hope, will they'll find a way to get past the virus, either with a vaccine or some way of managing it, so people can feel safe to go back into theaters, and then that problem is pretty much resolved, hopefully.
You are very passionate about the community you live in. You are one of the icons of the city of New York, and you responded along with your partners Jane and Craig in a very meaningful way to 9/11. You established a film festival, and you were an active part in the rebuilding of Lower Manhattan. Can we draw any parallels to your new initiative, the festival We Are One Global Festival, which I'm told is a 10-day free festival available on YouTube?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, 9/11 was as horrible as it was. This is something much, to me, more worse and insidious because we can't see it and we don't know where it goes, and it affects and kills lots of people. It's killed over 130,000 Americans now. We have almost 3 million cases, I think, in the States. So it's ongoing, and so that was a way to do that with these other festivals around the world. There were like 22 cities festivals we worked with, and had this We Are One festival, which I think did pretty well, and people were great. The people who were involved in it, everyone from all the different festivals around the world.
Since 1986, we take pride in the fact that we put together here at the Tisch School every other year the world's largest student film festival that brings students from no less than 68 countries. And we would like you to obviously be our guest one day, and hopefully we'll be able to collaborate with your great initiative.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
Now we're being watched now by hundreds of aspiring actors
Mhm.
and directors and producers. Is there any specific advice you'd like to share with them as they embark on this career?
Well, all I would say is you have to really stick to it and follow your instincts. And if you're creating something, um, try to use what you genuinely feel and look at the world, because that's how you distinguish yourself. Then you fine tune your own voice, whether you're a writer, a director, an actor, or you just but especially as a writer and a director, because actor is more interpretive in a way, but they can inject certain things that and make it personalize the performance, say along the lines of what's demanded of it in the performance for the total piece, written by whoever, and so on. That's the most important thing, is to not think, well, it was done this way, it was done that way. Just even if you are influenced by something, you realize you got to catch yourself. If you're the worst example is imitating something or doing something and it's a cliche, and you want to avoid those. So you have to keep your own voice as specifically yours as possible. True to yourself.
Yeah, and you certainly have done that throughout your amazing career. Your last time in Israel, I believe, was in 2013 when you came to honor Shimon Peres of blessed memory.
Yes.
He was celebrating his 90th birthday.
Right.
Is there any specific memory you can share with us from your encounters with our late president?
Well, I loved seeing him. I brought one of my kids with me, and we had a terrific time there that time, and it was great to see him. He was a great person, a great statesman.
I know that he liked you very much as well. I used to work with him, and I know that he liked you very much. Mr. De Niro, it has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you about your career. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights with our students. I would like to thank Sten Rosenfield and Canal Productions for making this possible. Raz Yosef, the head of our Tisch school, and our very own Agnes Anna Goldman, who organized this beautiful event. And also I'd like to thank my dear friend and your friend, Jane Rosenthal, for helping behind the scenes. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you here at Tel Aviv University Tisch School of Film and TV very, very soon.
Okay. Thank you. Shalom.
Shalom.